As a fiction author, you've probably found a lot of advice out there about starting a newsletter. My issue with a lot of that advice is that it's for non-fiction authors more than fiction authors. Fiction is different. It's discovered differently. As a person who's maintained a creative practice myself, as well as put art out in the world, this is a topic I resonate with. So I thought I'd put together some solutions from an email marketing perspective that you might like to know. I'm Irshad Aziz. We are Dropkick Copy. We do all things email except cold email. There's a link in the description. You can check out some testimonials of ours. But back to the video. So this is the author's dilemma, right? You start off asking yourself, how do I sell books? How do I sell more books? Once you dig into that question, you arrive at this other question. It's like, well, how do I even promote the book? How do I promote books? Once you start promoting books, you discover that people actually don't read books. They buy more books than they read. That's what you're dealing with. So it's like, how do I get people even to read books? Once you dig into that, you'll end up at this area where you start asking yourself, how do people select books? So there's been studies done by libraries actually. Libraries study how people select books. So what you'll discover is that people like discovery. They like the process of going to a place that has a lot of books, picking it off the shelf, looking at it, turning it over, reading the blurb. The cover matters. That's another thing you'll learn. The cover matters, the way the text look, all of that matters. What also matters is recommendations, word of mouth, who's talking about the book. Did they hear about it from their reading group, from their friend, from their writing mentor? It all matters. It all matters. You'll find also that there's avid readers and non-avid readers. There's people who read a lot. They have reading. They're not starved for book ideas, things to read. You know what I mean? Avid readers, they have reading lists. Non-avid readers look to the readers for advice because you seem to know more. So the non-avid reader is looking for suggestions also. So you discover all these things through these studies, you know what I mean? Another thing I discovered is that the internet is not used for discovery as much as other things like word of mouth, going to the bookstore, watching a podcast where the author is talking. That stuff matters more. When people search, they're searching for like proper details. How much does it cost? Where? Who sells it? That type of, who wrote it? What's his biography? Stuff like that. That's what the internet's used for. So it's very interesting, right? How books are found. Fiction authors. This is the part that a lot of people forget when they give advice on email marketing. The non-fiction is not discovered this way. Non-fiction is a completely different process. There's some similarities. There's some overlap. I'll admit, but fiction has its own thing going on, right? So when you're marketing the book, you have to consider all of that. So think about marketing as a funnel, right? So the top of a funnel is wider. You probably know this already, but let's just go over it. The top of the funnel is wide, the bottom is thin. When people say top of the funnel, what they mean is organic. They mean social media. They mean all the stuff you put out for free, the stuff that raises awareness. Any media marketing that you put out there, just to raise awareness, that's top of the funnel stuff generally. Middle and bottom is where people are already aware of you and now you're dealing with somebody who already knows your books, knows your work, right? So what does this mean for a fiction author? Cool things you can do. If you're going to run ads, use the ads to world build, to show set and setting, to show place, plot, if you can, genre. Because when people are trying to discover books, they're discovering based on those things. Plot, genre, the world, you know what I mean? So history, romance, they're looking at all of these things before they discover. So when you're advertising, advertise with that in mind, right? You also want to be present as an author in person. I know a lot of people don't like this, but it's like, this is the age where we have to be in front. You can't be hiding anymore. This time is over. As an author, you need to get out there. You need to be on podcasts talking, even on radio. Just talk, be out there. Not talking about your book, talking about other things too, because you're a person that's viewed as somebody who's well-read because you write books. So you must be well-read. When you speak, people automatically assume you've got some backing to what you're saying. So it makes a lot of sense for you to be out there commenting on things. Social commentary would make sense. Just to give you an example, there's a science fiction author called Cory Doctorow. I have not read his books, but I know of Cory Doctorow because I read an article of his where he coined the term enshittification. Now everybody uses the word enshittification. This dude coined it. I've never read a Cory Doctorow book, but his name is branded in my mind now. So next science fiction book I pick up, I might check out his stuff. You see what I mean? This is because Cory Doctorow's talking about the world he lives in. He writes sci-fi, tech. He has a lot of, it's very nice. He comments on tech in a kind of dystopian way, all that stuff. So his commentary gets viral. It's very interesting to hear from him. You could be somebody like that in your lane, you know what I mean? So top of the funnel is all of that. So all of that's top of the funnel. Middle and low end of the funnel is where you get this discussion of having a newsletter happening. People are start a newsletter because that addresses this middle and low end of the funnel thing. I would like to challenge the notion of setting up a newsletter. You'll understand when I explain. Just follow along with me. Now, speaking of email, before starting a newsletter, you can also use email for cold outreach. Who are you trying? I don't advocate for cold outreach. I don't advocate for bugging people. But this is not bugging people. Why? Because, as we know, the world wants to discover books. They enjoy discovering books. The marketplace enjoys discovering books. So people would like to hear about a good book always. Always, right? So you want to be reaching out to reading groups, book reviewers, podcast hosts to talk about books, anything. Reach out, be cold outreach. Hey, I'm an expert in this area. I even wrote a book about it. I'd love to be a guest on your show sometime. Let me know. Put me in the roster. That type of thing. You can do all of that, right? That's cold outreach. And email might help you. Email might help you there. You don't have to use a newsletter. You can use email this way. You can automate some of this stuff. You can automate follow-ups. You can do a bunch of things with email to make this easier for you, this cold outreach easier for you. So consider that. Likewise, you can also start a newsletter about reviewing other books. That's a piece of low-hanging fruit, right? What a lot of people do is they'll make a newsletter about their writing process. The problem with that is you're going to attract a bunch of writers. They're cool, they're readers too, but that's not the mass market. They already know a lot of the stuff you're telling them anyways. So who do you have on your list? Do you have a list of fans of your writing or your world, or do you have people who are just doing what you do? It's not a bad thing. You just got to know who you're attracting, right? So what I'd suggest is don't make a newsletter about writing per se. Leave that for top of the funnel. Talk about writing on X. Talk about writing on Instagram, on YouTube, right? In the newsletter, you can talk about books because people want to hear from somebody like you who's written a bunch of books. You've probably read a lot of books too. You've probably read more books than you've written, right? So they value your opinion. I like to see what authors read. It helps you know where their ideas come from. It's cool. You get some great book ideas just from doing that alone without speaking to anybody, right? So that's low-hanging fruit for you rather than start. That's a newsletter idea from you. Another thing you can do instead of going that route, is you can use the email automations and such to run a drip campaign to introduce people to your world, to give people a bit of a taste. Because remember, we established that people buy more books than they read. Getting people to actually open up the book and read is a whole scene. Like, I have tons of books according to my Kindle, I'm the most well-read man on the planet. You know what I mean? It's a task to go through all of these things, and I bought some books at certain phases. I haven't read them. I'm not into it anymore. You see what I'm trying to say? So it's not enough that a person has bought your book. It matters more that they've read at least 8 pages, 10 pages. Even the feedback they give you off of 8 pages is valuable to you, let alone the purchase price of it, right? So consider doing that. You can run a drip campaign. If they open the first email, they get the next email and the third email, and you take them over the course of a week through a whole scene, that you can show people, this is what the whole book's about, this is what I'm about, my storytelling is about, my writing style is about, etc., etc. So I hope that makes sense. I think that makes sense. Remember that selling more books is not just about this initial stage of inviting people to read a chapter or a portion of your book, right? You gotta sell the book because ultimately you're trying to make a living off this, right? You sell the book. It's not even about that one book. Some people's first book in the series is just a lost leader. You make the money back off of the rest of the series. Things like that happen. So repeat purchases matter. This is where email excels over other marketing mediums, marketing channels. Investing in email makes a lot of sense for authors, and both fiction and non-fiction, because retention happens through the email list. Repeat purchases can happen through the email list. You keep people in your hands. Once you've got them in your hands, your customer acquisition cost drops, etc., etc. This is email. The email marketing side is a whole nother thing. But yeah, I hope that makes sense. There'll be another video following this one where we explore all the revenue channels you have in front of you as an author from a marketer's perspective.